Bringing your favorite fruit to the table, Nature Ripe is farmer-owned and committed to growing berries that are bursting with flavor. Continuing a 100-year tradition of family farming, Nature Ripe is making innovative strides in sustainability through their Cultivate with Care program. To learn more about Nature Ripe and why we have chosen this distinguished brand as one of our partners, please visit natureripefarms.com. When you see the Nature Ripe label on your fresh produce, you know it is more than a trademark. It is a trust mark. Welcome to the Produce Moms Podcast, where we believe there is a produce mom in all of us. I'm Lori Taylor, founder and CEO of the Produce Moms. For 10 years, I sold fresh produce to over 300 grocery stores in the U.S. And today, my team and I are fully focused on inspiring people to eat more fruits and vegetables. This show is just one of the ways that we hope to inspire you and your family to eat more produce and live a better life. If you like what you're hearing on the podcast, join our community of almost 40,000 in all 50 states and over 30 countries by visiting theproducemoms.com/subscribe. And be sure to subscribe and leave us a review on iTunes. Thanks for being here. Enjoy today's show. Hello, everyone. I'd like to welcome you back to another edition of the Produce Moms Podcast. Today we are on episode 14, and I've got a woman that I've had the pleasure of doing a lot of the work I'm the most passionate about, and that's the work that we do at the Produce Moms to, really advance child nutrition policies in the United States. The work that we do with USDA school meals and all sorts of other government programs that are critical for children's access to fresh produce. So I'd like to welcome one of my colleagues, one of my friends. Her name is Molly Van Lieu. She is the Senior Director of Nutrition Policy at the United Fresh Produce Association, and she is our industry's rock star in DC, working on the Hill on a daily basis to make sure that there's that all policies within the United States support an increased presence of fresh produce. So welcome, Molly. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Lori. I'm so excited and humbled to be invited. I've been listening, and I think I shared with you to the podcast, and I'm so excited about it and, the impact it can have in kind of raising awareness around our industry and nutrition. So I'm so happy to be here.
Well, thank you. It's so good to have you here. Usually I only see Molly in DC, which is great because she has taught me so much. And I was actually in your predecessor, who is a legend in and of herself. That was really when I started my work in DC with United Fresh. But gosh, Molly, you have done such a good job because Lorelei Tasagra, she is not, those are big shoes to fill. As a matter of fact, I think
little lady, but
Tom Stenzel, the president, I think he actually said, they are such big shoes to fill. We actually hired 2 individuals to take over what Lorelei's one job was. But tell us a little more, if you don't mind, about what exactly United Fresh Produce Association is and what your day-to-day role is and the impact that you're making on the fresh produce industry. And I will say, guys, before Molly gets going, I'm a big believer in the United Fresh Produce Association. I'm very proud to say that the Produce Moms is an active member and supporting, we support what they do at the United Fresh Produce Association. So Molly, would love to hear how you describe what the association is and why the work you're doing is so important to all of us in the fresh produce industry.
Yeah, great. Thanks. So, technically, United Fresh Produce Association is a trade association, and we're based in Washington, D.C., and we represent the full supply chain from fresh produce, which is fairly unique kind of in this political world. So we have members, everybody from growers and shippers, distributors, wholesalers, fresh cut processors, retailers, food service, so the full gamut. So anybody that has anything to do with promotion of fruits and vegetables and getting fruits and vegetables ultimately to your plate or to your meal makes up our association. And so what I do kind of on a day-to-day is work within our government relations department on nutrition policy. And we have a broad portfolio of policy issues that we work on generally, because there's obviously a lot of issues that impact the industry. But on nutrition policy, most of the day-to-day is working on federal nutrition and feeding programs. So some of those are more familiar to people than others, school meal programs, but there's things like the Women, Infant, and Children, or WIC, that targets postpartum and pregnant and children under 5. There's early child care programs, the SNAP or the food stamp program. So basically taking a look at those and seeing kind of what the opportunities are to increase access and consumption of fresh fruits and vegetables within those programs. And then, predominantly our work is around those federal programs, but you know this, that all people in America, regardless of low income or not low income, are not meeting the dietary guidelines. Only about 10% of Americans do. So there's definitely work to do kind of more broadly in nutrition and increasing access and consumption for everybody.
Yeah, and United Fresh is certainly behind that. I mean, you guys, United Fresh as an organization has been the leading catalyst in the United States to bring salad bars to schools as well. That probably is a podcast in and of itself, but the reason I wanted to bring Molly on and bring her on specifically right now is because it's Farm Bill time.
That it is, yeah.
Yeah, so this is like for everyone that works in agriculture. I mean, I guess maybe we should even back up a little bit. Like, why is child nutrition a political thing? Like, some people are surprised when they hear that, there are so many political and government regulations that relate to our industry. So why don't you just shed a little bit of light on why your focus of child nutrition is a political thing?
Yeah. So I think, and this kind of goes more broadly than even just Farm Bill, because child nutrition programs are authorized and funded through other bills as well. But I guess the most simple and technical answer is that the federal government pays for a lot of food in our country through feeding programs. So accordingly, there's policy and regulations that are made around what types of food should be served, and in exchange for a reimbursement. So most people are familiar that, for example, the school lunch and breakfast program is reimbursing schools for each meal served. And that's regardless of if it's a low-income family or a child from a non-low-income family. The reimbursement rates will be higher for the lower-income families, but the federal government is providing support through either cash assistance or commodity foods assistance to schools, kind of regardless of income levels. Why it gets political, in theory, everybody supports kids eating healthy. But, at the end of the day, anytime you make changes to nutrition programs, there's going to be kind of winners and losers in the food system. So when that happens, those other industries are going to try to make the case for maintaining, their kind of share of spending on federal nutrition programs. Yeah. And of course we do as well. And, but the good thing is that our industry, there's no limit to fresh fruit and vegetables in terms of a health perspective. Correct.
Yeah. I mean, we are in the fortunate position, and anytime I've joined Molly on the Hill for these meetings, with our congressional leaders, I have always kind of walked away thinking, you know what, like, we're the good guys, we're out here working really hard, trying to make sure that we're getting more fresh produce to children. That feels pretty good.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So let's go ahead and talk about Farm Bill, because that's really the timeliness of this broadcast. Certainly coincides with a lot of our government relations and political action work that relates to Farm Bill. So could you, at obviously an introductory level, please describe to our audience, what is Farm Bill and the programs that this behemoth piece of this behemoth piece of policy, what does it, what are all the different programs that it supports?
Sure. So behemoth is a good word to describe it. So it's really one of those pieces of legislation that impacts every single state, every single congressional district. It's called the Farm Bill. So obviously there is an agricultural component to it. So things like subsidies and crop insurance and conservation programs, and I'm kind of simplifying the stuff in the ag world, but there are all of kind of the major programs that are designed to provide assistance and support for agricultural programs, including things like the specialty crop block grant that goes to states to promote and support specialty crop commodities. Things like that are included. And then the other part of it is SNAP or food stamps. So you have both of those. And people have a lot of different opinions about SNAP. They have a lot of different opinions about the agricultural pieces. And when you kind of bring all of these members of Congress together to try to come up with a consensus on it, it gets really, really tricky. On things like subsidies, sometimes you see the kind of Tea Party or far-right Republicans are opposed to that, as well as some of the more liberal members of Congress will be opposed to things like that. But then on SNAP policy, that same sector that might agree on that area have completely opposing views on SNAP. So it's really hard to kind of come together. And I think people think of on the SNAP issue of SNAP being an issue for urban members of Congress and the Farm Bill being an issue for rural members of Congress. But obviously providing food impacts everybody. And on the SNAP issue, just by virtue of concentration of people in urban areas, certainly from a volume perspective, there's more people on SNAP in those areas. But when you look at kind of population density, 16% of rural and small towns population is on SNAP compared to 13% in urban areas. So the SNAP piece does impact folks kind of regardless of region or and geographic area.
Yeah,
exactly.
Everywhere. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. And so what would you consider the critical issues for child nutrition with the Farm Bill right now, and maybe just like your ongoing ones?
Yeah, so definitely for Farm Bill for us on nutrition is the fresh fruit and vegetable program, which you've been a huge advocate and help with that. And it's really just this amazing program that started in 2002. It provides a free fresh fruit or vegetable snack to kids in elementary schools in the lowest income areas. And it's been wildly popular and successful. It increases fruit and vegetable consumption. There are studies that show that obesity rates go down in kids that are participating. But since its inception, it's really gotten attacks from processing industry, fruit and vegetable processing industry, to try to include all forms. So that would include fresh, but also canned, dried, frozen, and pureed.
And that's what gets me fired up in DC right there. That's my hot button. So, because really, and Molly's been in the room when I've looked right back at, various, congressional staffers. I'm like, you realize the reality of what you're, pushing for with all forms instead of fresh form exclusive. The reality of that is a child is handed, instead of a handful of grape tomatoes, they're literally handed a jar of salsa or canned tomatoes.
Right.
Not the same, I mean, it's just ridiculous. Or frozen broccoli stems instead of fresh broccoli florets. Not the same. And I'm really, really passionate about the FFV program. Molly laughs because she's seen me, and maybe we should send this to Senator Donnelly's office. I don't know. They definitely know me too. I will say, in the state of Indiana, I've learned, I really do love that the fresh fruit and vegetable program actually began in the state of Indiana. We were one of the states that piloted it. So I get really passionate about this program because I believe in it. I believe in any exposure opportunity to fresh fruits and vegetables. I've seen it with my own eyes through our grassroots work, and even dating back to my days at the sales desk at Indianapolis Fruit Company. One of the accounts I was involved with was Indianapolis Public Schools, which you may remember. They voluntarily expanded it to every single classroom in their district participates, and they use. I believe that school district actually invested some of their own money to make sure it was available to every single classroom. So it's, FFVP, you guys, it's all over the Produce Moms website, and we've done various different, that's really how our political action started, was through my passion for keeping FFVP fresh form only.
Exactly. And you brought up a good point, Lori, like the word that you used, exposure, because kind of some of the criticism on the other side is that, all forms of fruits and vegetables are healthy. And that's absolutely true. All forms of fruits and vegetables are consistent with the dietary guidelines. But this program is so targeted within the school and kind of how it's implemented in the classroom. As you brought up, if a teacher is kind of handing out fruits and vegetables in the classroom, for things like frozen broccoli don't really translate the way a fresh piece of broccoli would. Right. And the other thing to keep in mind is that, there's no shortage of the processed or all forms of fruits and vegetables in the breakfast and lunch program. And if you kind of really dig deep and look at the types of commodities that USDA is buying and how that works is, they do bonus buys, or they, purchase products directly, domestic products directly, and distribute those to schools. Over 90% of the items that they're buying are canned, dried, or frozen. So you really kind of don't get the same access in schools. In some schools, they do. They do a fabulous job of providing fresh, but you don't get that across the board. So this truly, and people kind of think that we're exaggerating when we say this, but this truly could be the only time that a kid has had access to, fresh fruit and vegetable.
100%.
I know that, Jim from New York Apple has, tells the story of how, they were one of the early adopters up there too. And you're thinking of thing like an apple that most of us would imagine kids have had a chance to try, right, by the time they get to elementary school. And there are these kids who literally grew up within New York's apple growing region and had never tried a fresh apple before. So that's the kind of impact that this program is making. Yeah, so to tie that back to kind of Farm Bill and what the ask is, so the House bill that passed included making all forms, canned, dried, frozen, included with fresh, available in FFVP, and then the Senate side kept it fresh only. So as we're kind of getting close to the deadline on coming together with a negotiated agreement, those two sides have to come together through something that's called a conference committee. The rubber's kind of hitting the road on making sure that we can keep that program fresh.
So from a constituent standpoint, anyone who's listening, what is something that the constituents can do to promote fresh form for this upcoming legislation?
Yeah. So the easiest thing to do, you could just go to our website, which is unitedfresh.org /action. And there's an action alert that includes nutrition and some of our other priorities around the Farm Bill. That's the easiest thing to do. But if you have a relationship with your members of Congress, or if you don't, you go to their website and just shoot them an email and let them know that you support keeping the program fresh.
Yeah, that's great. We'll definitely include in our show notes, everyone, the link directly to the United Fresh website, as well as some specific calls to action in terms of what we would like our listeners to do. to kind of join Molly, myself, everyone else at United Fresh, everyone in the fresh produce industry that's very passionate about keeping FFVP fresh farm only. And I know there are plenty of parents out there listening to this podcast that agree with us. So we could use your grassroots support. It's important. So we'll make that easy for you. It'll be right in the show notes. So thank you, Molly, for explaining that. So I know we've talked extensively about my favorite thing, FFVP, but what else? What else would you say kind of falls under your umbrella with child nutrition?
Well, I think in the Farm Bill, we talked about SNAP being included in the programs that reauthorizes. So there's some opportunities within the legislation that has been drafted to increase fruit and vegetable consumption. There's a lot more work to do, but the Food Insecurity and Nutrition Incentive, which is a long program name, but it's often known in some places as Double Up Bucks or matching program. Exactly, Beanie. Which is, a SNAP consumer spends $8 on fruits and vegetables, and they get a voucher for free $8 worth of free fruits and vegetables on their next visit. So we had been working with both sides, Senate and House, to try to get some changes around ensuring that fruits and vegetables are the commodities that are getting incentivized in that program. Also making sure that grocery stores have the capacity and are included in those kind of feeding recipients, because this isn't something that's available everywhere. It's still, it's growing, but it's still kind of just reaching a smaller number of consumers than I think that we'd like. But we know that 80% of SNAP dollars are spent in grocery stores or superstores. So ensuring that we can kind of grow these programs where people are shopping, the most people are shopping, and SNAP consumers is really important. So that's an area of SNAP of the Farm Bill with SNAP that we're working on specifically.
That's great.
Yeah.
Keep up the good work. It's so important. I tell every single one of our guests that comes on the podcast, I tell them that when we started the podcast, our goal was certainly to provide just that audible platform where we can share inspiring stories and insights to help encourage people to eat more fruits and vegetables, as well as, just the authenticity and passion that's within this industry. And the way that we were going to do that was by bringing on guests that are doing work that matters. And I truly just, my hat is off to you and everyone at United Fresh and the government relations team, the whole association, but the government relations component of United Fresh is so critical for not only our industry, but you guys, for every single household. Programs like SNAP and USDA school meals and FFVP, these are programs that Molly herself is, advocating day in and day out to maintain fresh produce within them. And it affects the whole country. So it affects us all. I absolutely think, obviously you're on the list of people that are doing work that matters. So thank you for being here. Certainly there's been, I know from, keeping an eye on what my industry colleagues are doing and, the promotions that United Fresh puts out there, there's been several United Fresh members on the Hill these past few weeks, for congressional hearings and other things that undoubtedly relate to Farm Bill, because you guys might not realize this, but Farm Bill is a 5-year long piece of policy. Is that correct, Molly?
Yep, that's if they pass it on time, but they've been known to do some extensions.
No, delays in DC, no way. So 5 years, and then it passes again. So this will be under this administration, the first Farm Bill, and that is so that the members have been out there on the Hill. I know that we as an industry have several critical issues. I know that your focus is nutrition policy, but are you comfortable just shedding some light on what these other critical issues are right now for our industry?
Absolutely, yeah. So kind of within Farm Bill, and I mentioned some of these briefly, things like funding for specialty crop block grants that go directly to states to promote the commodities that are produced in those states. It's critically important. Things like research around, pest and disease and mechanization for improving harvesting. I mean, there's just a breadth of issues within the Farm Bill that are critical. But beyond that, there's so many other things that are going on, and it's kind of simultaneously. So, and don't quiz me on it, but with the tariffs and trade issues are huge right now for the industry. As you know, food safety is constantly an area in which we're engaged in and addressing. And then the elephant always in the room is immigration. So that's always kind of underlying in everything we do is the importance of immigration reform.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. No, I've learned so much about our industry just by getting more involved with United Fresh, participating in the industry fly-ins that you all host, and spending more time on the Hill with our professional leaders that are representing us all as employees of United Fresh. So I guess I would like to, before I give Molly the last word, here's my last word. Anyone in the produce industry that's listening to today's conversation, I really encourage you to get as involved as you possibly can with United Fresh. I became a much better advocate, a much more passionate participant in our industry when I started getting involved with the political action. And becoming a more active member within United Fresh. So I definitely encourage you to keep an eye on all the opportunities that are available for us as passionate professionals within the produce industry through United Fresh. And then also, if you're not a member, definitely be a member, because the membership supports work that professionals like Molly are doing on the Hill day in, day out for us, for the advancement and protection of our industry. And then we're all constituents, get involved. If you're passionate about making sure that USDA school meals improve in their, fresh offerings, then, get involved, and we'll do our best to make that as easy as possible for you as a listener, to do things like send your congressional leaders an email and knowing what exactly you're telling them to support when you share the passion that we all have of, hey, we want more fresh produce for kids everywhere in schools, especially. So we'll definitely make the resources that are available to United Fresh. We'll kind of bring those to the forefront so our listeners can easily access those. But that's my last word, Molly. So I'm going to pass it over to you because our guest always gets the last word. But yes.
Well, thank you so much. And I'm kind of a newbie to United Fresh. I've been here almost a year, but I've just been so kind of in awe and impressed with our membership in the industry and how they just come together, around issues that might not necessarily, impact a particular member, a particular company directly, but the willingness to kind of come together and knowing that it obviously impacts the industry as a whole has been such an honor to kind of participate in and see. So they make our jobs really easy to just kind of advocate on behalf of the amazing products that they're getting to kids and to adults. So I would just encourage folks. I mean, we're always looking for, I think something that's also so great about our industry is they're just going out and doing it. But we want to hear the stories. We want to hear how the industry is, increasing consumption for and access for kids, for adults. So we can support the industry in any way we can. And thank you for all the work that you're doing to promote our work and the work of the industry.
Oh, well, it's my pleasure. Thank you so much. So you guys, episode 14, that's a wrap. Molly from United Fresh, Molly Van Lieu. Molly, thank you so much for being part of today's show. And
everybody eat your fruits and vegetables. Have a plate.
Isn't that the truth? Thank you, Molly. Have a great day, everyone.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of the Produce Moms Podcast. If you or someone you know would like to be a featured guest, just send an email to Lori@theproducemoms.com. We know there is a produce mom in you because there's a produce mom in all of us. Join our community on Facebook and all social platforms. Help us change the way America eats. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time.